Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and being a producer of Wrestle Massacre as well as Inside Movies Galore, I am David Strege, and welcome to Delusions of Grandeur. Enjoy the reviews. I certainly did.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore. I love that extended intro. Welcome back. We are continuing this somewhat discombobulated birthday month, but we are heading into a discussion about a film that we've been subjected to by none other than our good friend Jake here. So, did you want to start us out here and tell us which movie that you had us watch for this evening's discussion?
Sure. And before we go, I do apologize tonight if my voice gives out at some point, but hopefully we'll be good. We are looking at the 1984 debut film from Joel and Ethan Coen called Blood Simple.
The year I was born.
What's up?
I said the year I was born.
Ah, okay. And also, I would say one of the best years for cinema. There were some really, really, really good films that came out that year. But this is, IMDb says, the owner of a seedy small-town Texas bar discovers that one of his employees is having an affair with his wife. A chaotic chain of misunderstandings, lies, and mischief ensues after he devises a plot to have them murdered. Again, written and directed by Joel and Ethan Coen. In typical up until relatively late in their career, Joel got the directing credit and Ethan got the producing credit, but eventually they were like, yeah, we both did, everything. This was Joel Coen's third ever movie. He worked as an assistant editor on a low budget horror film called Fear No Evil. And more famously, a very well-known low-budget horror film, The Evil Dead. Barry Sonnenfeld, the director of photography, this was his first narrative feature. This was Frances McDormand's first acting credit. There were a lot of people. Ethan Coen wasn't involved in cinema at all when they decided to do this movie. So a lot of the people involved, this was a first effort for a lot of them. And to hear the brothers Coen tell it, it shows. But it's still, for what it is, it's a low budget film noir / horror hybrid that's really strange. I feel like there is an Evil Dead vibe to it, but also a strong, hard-boiled, 40s noir feel to it as well. So Dave, the month wasn't totally discombobulated because I was in sort of a noir mode and Tammy was in a vampire mode. So,
Well, you know what I mean.
right. But anyway,
Different case.
we will go ahead and start going around the room here. And we'll start with you, Tammy. Is this your first time with this movie, and what were your initial thoughts?
David said we watched it a long time ago, but I don't remember watching it a long time ago. So to me, it was my first time.
I hear ya.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. You just, as I was watching it, and then it's like, then you start seeing what's like. I'm sitting here going, why do you do that? Why do you do that? And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, okay, I get it now. I got it. So, once it like all of a sudden clicked as to exactly what was going on, it was just like, ding, 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 ding. I get it now. So,
good deal.
But yeah, it was interesting. It was until you get that aha moment as to why is this guy doing this, you're sitting here wondering, but then it all comes clear. So yeah,
right.
it was definitely interesting. So
Good.
I liked it.
Good deal. Good deal. How about you, Dave?
Well, I'd actually been introduced to this movie a long time ago. I think I watched it on TV at one point in time, and then eventually I picked it up for myself. I don't have the Criterion copy, DVD or Blu-ray otherwise, so I definitely need to upgrade. But I enjoyed the movie at the time. Wasn't really. At the time that I watched this, I was not really well knowledgeable about Joel and Ethan Coen. But now that I am, it is an earlier, and it's definitely a little bit more darker than their more weird comedy is that we know, So. I thought it was interesting at the time and a good enough film to be in my collection at the time. So, yeah, glad that I was able to revisit it. Frances McDermott is very young here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you don't. What the contrast between her in this movie and then her in Fargo is definitely an understatement because you can definitely see the age gap. But
or how about this one in Nomadland?
haven't seen that one yet. At least I started to watch Nomadland. It was very slow for my taste, but
Right.
Nomadland.
It was enjoyable. The guy who played the detective, I've seen him in quite a few things. He's delectable in every single role that I've seen him in.
Yeah.
And he definitely plays Stingy very well. For the most part, I enjoy the film. So,
all righty. How about you, Brandon?
Well, actually, I would say that my experience with the film first time was about like Tammy's. I don't remember my first time watching it, though I did watch it prior. Actually, it's very similar to, I guess, Miller's Crossing. I got that big Coen set, and I blew through all of them. I really liked Barton Fink, and I really liked Fargo, and I didn't remember anything from Miller's Crossing or Blood Simple. Oh, and I really liked Raising Arizona. That was the yeah. So those
Right.
were the 5 that are on that set. So I had been wanting to return to Blood Simple, but I'd remembered it being boring, so I didn't want to. That was the only thing I remembered, was that I was bored. So I was
Yeah.
like, I don't want to return to it. I was bored. So you gave me the excuse to return to it, which was good. I can see a lot of the. This is one of the films that I actually could have, in theory, seen in theaters. I don't know why anyone would want to take a 4 to 5-year-old to see this, but in
Uh, I
theory,
don't know why they would either. That's a weird thing.
but maybe if my father was doing it, but this really wasn't his type of movie either, so I don't think he would have. I think he also would have been bored by this film. Um, but I'm watching it this time around. I actually was watching it at a time where I was able to focus on it and get a better feel for it. So I did get to enjoy it. There are a lot of pieces of it that you can feel is almost proto Coen, because there's the little pieces there that kind of indicate, but not the giant glaring red flags that would indicate it was a Coen movie. You actually kind of have to kind of squint to tell. Whereas most Coen movies are as easy to tell that they're Coen brother movies as, like, say, Wes Anderson movies or these movies, because they're so signature.
Well,
But
it's the
even the
same. It's similar with Anderson's first movie, Bottle
yeah,
Rocket. It's such an outlier among all the movies.
yeah, because even the conversation in this has hints, but there's nowhere near Coen typical conversation. But yeah, otherwise, I did really enjoy it for the most part, other than pacing issues, which was my biggest problem with this particular film. I admit I probably was like the guy that's pictured behind me uh, when I was seeing it. But I was prepared this time, and like I say, it was enjoyable. I'm glad I got to come back to it. Just like I was glad that I think was it last year we did Miller's Crossing? I know we did that not long
I
ago.
think it was last year. It wasn't long ago.
So, just
Yeah.
like with Miller's Crossing, I'm kind of glad that I got to go back to it, because if you watch a movie and you don't really remember any of it, have you really watched a movie, really? So,
Right.
so now I can say I remembered it. I have a good idea as to what the plot is. There's not a lot of glaring what, and there were a couple of twists towards the end that I did enjoy. So overall, I had a good experience. Just minor pacing issues. Not something I would put on if I was slightly groggy.
Right. Yeah. Well, this definitely this movie definitely has always been a very highly regarded movie. Once it really hit, like they had trouble getting it released, but once it hit a couple of festivals and people responded to it, like the critics have always loved the movie. And if for a first feature, again, with everyone being mostly first timers, it's remarkably professional and well made. And this is a good example of the whole Lloyd Kaufman make your own damn movie idea. Because supposedly, with help from Sam Raimi, Raimi told them how he financed Evil Dead, and they did basically the same thing. They made a trailer, which apparently featured Bruce Campbell, and they shopped it around trying to get people to chip in 5,000 here, 10,000 there, and they made their budget that way. And it's actually kind of a fun idea. Like again, they did that, and Raimi did that, and it's pretty cool. But for me, this is probably my fourth and fifth. No, I don't suppose anyone tracked down the Kenneth Loring commentary that I mentioned. Because if you count that, I've seen the movie at least 6 times, I think, because I've seen that commentary track twice. One of the things that really ticks me off about the Criterion edition, they do have 2 extensive conversations with the Coens, which is great because usually they are notoriously tight-lipped about their films. But one bonus feature that's not on it, they hired Jim Pittock, a very, very amusing British actor, to play Kenneth Loring of Forever Young Films. And his commentary track is phenomenal. It was apparently scripted by the Coens. It's hilarious. And anyone wants to see a send-up of snooty critics, it's worth looking for that track. But it was on the anniversary edition release of the film, but they did not put it on the Criterion release. So I have 3 copies of this movie in my collection because I have to have the Criterion edition and that one with the Kenneth Loring thing, and I have that set Brandon mentioned. So, but I have never loved this film the way I do some of their others. It is a little slow-paced. I think the horror elements didn't really appeal to me as much before. Now I can appreciate it a lot more than I used to. And it's an interesting movie. It does have, solid performances. Emmett Walsh is great in the film. He is absolutely great. And apparently, the Coens saw a movie that he did with Dustin Hoffman. I think it was called Straight Time or something. And they loved him so much, they were like, he needs to play this character. So they've written a lot of roles for actors. This was the first time they'd ever done that. And they were amazed that he agreed to be in the movie. But apparently, he insisted on being paid in cash every day. So, whatever works, right? And of course, Frances McDormand is Mrs. Joel Coen. They met on this film and married after. But overall, I like it. I think it's a good movie. I think it's an interesting movie. It's definitely a solid first effort. Their second film, Raising Arizona, was infinitely more enjoyable in my book, and I'll always love that one. Out of their overall filmography, this one's top 10, I think, but it's probably near the bottom of the top 10. But it's definitely a solid first effort, and I thought it would be a good one to look at. And I was hoping it would be a good opportunity to get my Criterion edition fully watched, and I just did not get through everything. But like I said, there is a conversation with author Dave Eggers, and there's a panel discussion with Barry Sonnenfeld, and both of those are pretty interesting and give a lot of insight. So that was pretty cool. But anyway, we'll launch into it. I see we lost Dave for the moment. Hopefully he'll be back soon. So basically the movie starts with a little voiceover. We see scenes of Texas, a little voiceover from our detective. I think his name is Visser Lauren, but he's never actually referred to by name in the film. He's simply the private detective, or Lauren Visser, whatever. But we see this couple, Ray and Abby, who are played by John Getz and Frances McDormand. Couple, they're having an affair. And we soon figure out that Julian, who's Ray's boss and Abby's husband, who's played by Danejurous, and I did not mean to pick two movies with Danejurous. That was kind of an amusing accident there. He plays a much bigger role in this one than he did in Mulholland Drive. But he's on to them. We find out he has hired this private detective to trail them. He has offered photographic evidence of their tryst. And really, honestly, the movie overall has a pretty simple plot. There's some twists and turns along the way, but essentially it's a unhappy wife finds solace in her husband's employee. The husband decides that getting evidence isn't enough. He wants them killed, and he hires the detective to kill them. And in typical, this is one thing that is a typical Coen brothers thing that kind of, their movies, I feel like one underlying theme in most of their movies is criminals are stupid. And generally, things that start simple almost always spin out of control. But did anyone else want to make any comments on the early part, like the setting the scene and what not?
I think that when you're looking at it, of course, this is one of my favorite parts of the movie I have pictured here. But I mean, you really have. I mean, it's a basic story essentially. I mean, you've got the wife cheating on the husband. You've got the private detective who discovers said wife cheating on husband, and then reporting back to the husband, who is slightly miffed at the whole situation.
Slightly.
To put it mildly.
Right.
I mean, in truth, the story itself is very simple, other than some of the weird twists that happen at the end. Because I'll admit, by the way, spoilers for this discussion.
Yes.
For a movie that is older than many of you probably that are watching this. But yes, I really think that the premise is very simple, really going through, because it is that sets up the whole premise of it. Is they're cheating, he's pissed off about it, and you've got a private eye looking to make extra cash. Which, by the way, I love the performance of the private eye. What was his name? Blood Simple.
Well, again, I guess he was technically named
Emmett Walsh. Yeah, his name Private Detective essentially was the character's name. But Emmett Walsh, excellent job with that character. One of my favorite acting jobs, other than Francis McDormand's, in this movie.
Right. Yeah, I think he was fun, and I think for the most part he had fun with it. It was yeah. Sorry.
Oh, and the dog. The dog was also excellent.
See, this is why you got to watch the Kenneth Loring commentary, where he went into extreme detail on how the dog was actually an animatronic dog, because you couldn't train a dog to do the things this dog does in the film, at least not on a budget. And I'm like, yeah, no. It was very amusing. He
Here I was thinking that the dog was on the commentary.
Wouldn't that be something? But yeah, and he repeatedly referred to Ray as the pleasant man, and McDormand as the pleasant woman, and he called the Marty and the other and the detective the unpleasant man and the other unpleasant man. I'm like, yeah, well, that's appropriate. I mean, the detective is definitely shady. I think calling him, he's personable in a way, but Marty's just straight up unpleasant. He really is. He's just straight up like, it's no wonder Abby's looking for someone else. But and Danejurous is great with those roles. I mean, he really has built a career out of playing total shit people. But it was yeah.
Now,
What's that?
when it comes to this, and I hope you don't mind me running forward a little bit because it sounds like you're coughing a lot. save your voice a little bit. But and maybe you can answer me some of this because I may have missed it because I might have nodded off. So of course they do indicate a lot of the stuff going forward with him being mad and trying to basically because she goes basically right back to the house, gets her stuff, and then leaves with her new beau. And then he has the gall to be able to go to the bar and tell him, well, I guess this means I'm fired, and I want my two weeks pay. As he's looking at that, as he's looking basically at the incinerator, and I'm pretty sure he's thinking about dumping the dude in the incinerator, and his wife in the incinerator even then.
Wood pile. He keeps looking at that wood pile that they keep shoving the wood in. And that wouldn't be a half bad idea to get rid of get rid of someone. But
if it burns hot enough,
there would be the smell of the human remains, and
because that's the problem is it wouldn't burn hot enough to burn the bone to ash. So you would still have plenty of evidence sitting in that incinerator.
Right.
Yeah.
But okay, so was there anything to indicate the amount of money that would motivate our private detective to murder, other than him offering to pay $10,000 for it, and the detective noticing the safe when it came to time to pay up?
There's no way of knowing exactly how much money was in that safe to begin with.
Right. Because, yeah, he did offer.
And there's no way of knowing how much money that he was already offering.
Because he offered the detective money to kill, was it both of them or was it just the guy?
Both of them, yeah.
And so I guess the detective's original plan was to just take the money and go, pretend that he did it. But then he saw that safe, and then he was like, ooh, I can bump him off and make a lot more money, and then frame the other dude for the murder, which I'm going to tell you right now, that dude was stupid. He did a lot of dumb stuff when he saw that guy shot.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing is, and I always wondered about that, but I mean, I think I figured out pretty early on that he thought Abby did it and he was trying to cover for her, but
yeah. Well, he says so later in the movie, but
yeah, he's just not good at it. Like, using a windbreaker to mop up blood is like, really?
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave as much evidence to make the cops think I did it.
Ray was pretty much our DNA lover.
What's up?
What he should have done is, once he kicked the gun and then it went off, and then when he realized what was going on, and he realized it was her gun, what he should have done is just grab the gun and left, and then ditch the gun somewhere. And that would have been the end of it.
But if she was registered as to owning the gun, though, then they could track the bullet casings back then.
And actually, I think, Brandon, you might have, because I know we took a creative writing course together. It may have been in that class that this concept came up. But there's a well-known precept in writing that if you introduce a gun, you ought to make sure it gets used. And of course, people break the rules all the time. But the basic idea stands that, if you introduce a murder weapon, people expect it to be used. And this movie took that to the extreme. The very first thing Abby says is, "I bought a gun." And her gun is handled by every main character in the film at some point. And it makes the rounds. And it does get used. It gets used to kill Marty, and it gets used to kill the detective. So it definitely was an interesting. What's up?
Yes, I know what you were saying about the bullet might have been able to have been traced, but yeah, no, depending on how degraded it was, and there were no shell casings because it was a revolver. So he probably could have gotten away with just taking the gun and ditching the gun.
Yeah, he could have. I mean, I have a feeling that she probably didn't. Well, first off, they're in Texas. So the likelihood that that gun had any paperwork that could tie her to buying it is probably nil.
Right.
So more than likely, the gun was untraceable by the sheer fact that she bought it.
He just went to the extreme because he saw it was her gun. So he went totally off the wall into the extreme because it was her gun, thinking that she did this,
Then they went to that whole
for her too. So
then they went through the whole thing of him getting the body, taking the body, putting it in the trunk. Then we get to the "I'm not dead yet" portion of it, where he does some terrible things to them, buries them alive.
Right. And the Coens mentioned that in one of the things I was watching. They were like, he is trying so hard not to do terrible things that he ends up doing worse things.
Yes.
And it is interesting. Like we said, this is sort of a proto Coen movie. Some of the stuff gets reused later. And those by the highway scenes absolutely seems like a trial run for the scene in Fargo later.
I feel like No Country for Old Men was something that Blood Simple truly was the prototype for at the end of it all.
I could see that.
Because really and truly, this isn't a horror. It's just a noir thriller.
Right.
I would say that and No Country for Old Men was the same thing, essentially. It's just it's done much. I mean, they polished themselves by that time, and it was that killer was freaky.
Right. But well, no, the Coens are very upfront that the fact was at the time the independent cinema circuit was mostly horror. And again, the background, their friendship with Sam Raimi and the background that Joel Coen had from there, they went into this with the idea of essentially making a horror film, but it kind of changed as they went and became more of a noir thriller. But there are moments like that last scene between Abby and the detective that is full on horror, I would say. There's a couple.
Plus the "I'm not dead yet."
Scene.
That was not noir. That was
right.
That was pure horror.
Yeah, and then the burial scene, which is basically, I think it's 13 minutes with basically no dialogue. That is just mostly him trying to deal with Marty. And it gives us this moment where he's burying him alive, and Marty gets the gun out of his pocket and tries to fire it, but he misses. He misses because the gun only had one bullet left at that point, and he clicked 3 times, but lucky Ray, it didn't work. And they pointed, they called it their Michelangelo moment, which, you know, when he's taking the gun from him, and it's like the picture of Adam and God, and I'm like, that's kind of a funny. But yeah, so we are skipping around a bit, but you know, again, it's it
technically, I guess moving forward really quickly.
Yeah. So, you know, stuff has happened in between. Like, one really important thing, of course, is that the detective lies about killing them. He doctors photos to make it look like he shot them. He ends up killing Marty. Yeah. And he leaves his lighter behind. And later that ends up becoming an important plot thing. And again, that commentary track, Kenneth Loring went on about that thing. That was hilarious. But anyway, so yeah, and when the lighter does say Lauren, that's like as close as they came to actually showing his name in the movie.
And we're forgetting the most unsung actors in this film, the ones that portrayed their characters tirelessly through the rest. The 4 fish that he brought back.
Oh yeah,
they are constantly in those scenes, and they do close-ups.
You could say that his lighter is sleeping with the fishes,
because he tells them to go fishing and then come back when he's called. So yes,
he tells them to go down to Corpus for a few days. Yeah. And meanwhile, we should go ahead and mention one of the other cast members that's in the background of that picture there. Maurice is the other bartender at the bar, and yeah, he's sort of a supporting role, but he shows up from time to time.
He just tries.
Well, evidently Marty had left a voicemail about money missing.
Yeah, he tried to play off his payoff to the detective as embezzling from his employees, which did not make Maurice happy. Not at all. And then it might have been right around this time. I don't remember exactly where, but there's a call at some point that Abby gets, I think from her sister or whatever. And that was Holly Hunter in one of, if not her first film role. The Coens had actually approached her for a role in the movie, and she was busy with theater, but her roommate was Frances McDormand, and she's like, hey, you should go talk to these guys. And so, and of course, Hunter would come back and be in other Coen Brothers films down the road, notably Oh Brother Wart Thou and a couple others. It is a shame they didn't end up finding a role for Bruce Campbell in the final cut, but apparently in the cut they did to secure financing, they had Campbell portraying Marty stumbling away from the car, basically, or crawling away. And I'm like, okay. And he's had a couple of tiny roles. Actually, Fargo was one of them. He's had a couple of roles through the years. And, of course, Hudsucker Proxy, which we'll have to cover that one of these days.
You know, for kids.
Yes, for kids. Exactly. Trying to think, like, anything else major. Well, of course, once Ray goes in, he sees Marty dead. He tries to clean up the scene. And at that point, he thinks Abby is guilty, and he is struggling very much with. He wants to protect her, but she literally has no idea why he's acting the way he is. She doesn't even know Marty's dead. And
No, but
yeah,
she starts to
So-
have nightmares with
Yeah.
Marty in them.
Yeah, well, she has the nightmares about it, and she does make her way back to the bar, which is where the issue comes, because our private dick is being a public dick by breaking into the safe. And I don't know why she returned, but I feel like, but she got the safe open, and he came after her. I want to say because of the money. Was that right?
the
Lighter.
The lighter,
more than anything.
because he couldn't find a lighter, even though
Yeah.
the lighter was right there underneath the fishes.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
she found the lighter, but yeah.
Yeah. That yeah, he had accidentally he had it. I guess he had it on the table, and Marty had plopped the fishes down and put them
Yeah.
over top by accident. And
The fishes, the MVPs of the movie.
but yeah, such acting, such solid acting. The what were the other so basically there's strain now between them because he thinks Abby's a killer and she doesn't know why he's being standoffish. And meanwhile, she has gotten her own apartment. And I guess at this point, we might as well get up to the final confrontation, unless there are any.
It is a very straightforward movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really simplistic if you get down to it. The thing that strikes me the oddest part, because you have kind of a love story, which then gets muddled because of this murder, because he thinks that she murdered him.
Well,
Take the money.
technically, she's still married to Marty.
Yeah.
Right.
And she could inherit. Well, she probably would get a lot of money from that because, well, they didn't have divorce yet. So she had much motive to murder him, and it was her gun. But
I don't know. Marty seems like the kind of dick who wouldn't leave her a dime. But,
yeah, well, but he was also, he probably didn't have enough time to do it. He also came in there previously to harass her.
Yeah.
And threaten her, which he ended up not having that work out in his favor.
yeah, she broke his finger, which
Wasn't that how he got a hold of her gun?
I think
No.
Yeah. She went and reached for his. She went and grabbed at her gun, and he kicked it away from her.
No, the reason why the gun ended up there to begin with was because of the private dick. He went into her purse, grabbed her gun,
Yeah.
and shot him with her gun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And I think I don't remember exactly how it ended up in Marty's pocket, though.
Because
I think he was gonna bury it with Marty.
Ah, yeah, that
that's
would make
possible.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
But
makes
he didn't
sense.
know that Marty was still.
So
Right.
the biggest
Oh,
surprise to
okay.
me
Mm-hmm.
in this film is that they actually killed our leading man.
Right.
I mean the detective, of course. But
Well, I mean, and this is one of the, I guess one of the horror aspects of the film is that in a very real sense, Abby is the final girl, and she is the only main character who survives.
I mean, she even stabs his head with a knife.
Right.
well, I thought it was so stupid that she turned back on the light.
Well, yeah, so they go into her apartment and she finds Ray already there, and he's like, turn off the light. And she, of course, says it. He's like, turn off the light. And he starts talking to her, And then, of course, she turns the light back on. And at that point, the detective is across the road. He's got them in his sights. And he ends up shooting Ray pretty much in the back, which takes him out. And, of course, then she doesn't even turn off the light then. She scrambles into a corner and throws her shoe at the bulb, which works on the second try, thankfully. But then she hears the door, realizes he's trying to get in. She thinks it's Marty again. She doesn't know he's dead, and she thinks Marty's got it out for her, which it was true. And then, she goes into the bathroom, finds that she might need to escape even further. And I'm not 100% sure she went into a different room in the loft or into an adjacent loft, but she like goes out the window and goes into an open window next to it. And the detective sees the open window. He goes over, reaches around, because that makes so much logical sense. She grabs his hand, slams the window down on his hand, and then slams a knife down into the windowsill, pinning his hand on the windowsill.
And in the process, I guess the pulling of the arm impacted the window that he was reaching out from, which broke the glass there.
Yeah. So he's like pressed up against broken glass. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. He's
with the
feeling
knife
lots of
in
pain.
his hand and his arm outstretched.
Well, he also empties his gun trying to shoot her through the wall. She
Right.
has a couple of hide behind the wall chainsaw moves in this because she just sits there. She just sits there watching it for the longest time before she actually, gets going.
Dodges.
Right.
It's, I mean, she might as well have been a fish in a barrel for him to shoot because of that. And he missed the barrel entirely. And in all fairness, that just, that happens. But still, it just, I don't know.
For kids.
Yeah, I'm not sure how logical that was. She seemed to be kind of a duh at moments.
And what kind of neighborhood is this? They don't hear all them shots from that gun,
right?
Well, in all fairness, it is Texas. There's probably like gunshots going off all the time,
Well, yeah, since it's also an ever-ready gun state. I'm sure every single person in Texas owns a gun.
You still would have thought somebody would have said, a reporter hearing all those gunshots, though.
But then again, the neighbor might have just been blowing off some steam,
Very possible.
Sorry about that. So, what I miss?
Well, we were just talking about like how she was standing there, like waiting for him to basically shoot her, and then he runs out of bullets, and that's when she gets moving.
Right.
But then, I mean, she does manage to. She gets her gun, which he did bring, which her boyfriend did bring.
Right.
But
we didn't mention the walrus piggy bank that he used to give the coup de grace on Ray once he enters the room. Yeah. How's that for a murder weapon?
But she does get a shot off through the door and does take him out with it. She gets
right. The last bullet in the gun, she manages. She thinks she's attacking Marty, and she says, like, I don't remember exactly what she says, but she says something to Marty, and then he starts laughing. The detective starts laughing, and he's like, "Well, if I tell him, I'll be sure to give him the message."
Yeah.
And that was, or if I see him, I'll be sure to give him the message. And that's pretty much the thing. That's pretty much the end of it.
Well,
yeah, I'm not afraid of you, Marty. Yeah. Well, man, if I see him, I'll sure give him the message. And then we got this final shot of water dripping down on him, and then it goes into Same Old Song, which was the song that was played over several points in the film.
Which I thought was excellent use of the music in that sense.
Right.
Yeah. But this was my impression of her.
Are you crazy? The guy behind the chainsaws. Smart.
Yes, the wall of chainsaws.
Hiding behind the chainsaws.
Yes. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much the plot of the film. I feel like we've already largely covered what there is to cover on character as well, but did we have any further notes on that?
Well, as far as Ray is concerned, he's kind of like your dumb hick, you know?
Yeah.
No offense to those out there who are always on the turned off the paved road. Of course, Bill Engvall would say, "Here's your sign." But
oh yeah, this guy needed several signs. That's for sure. But that being said, he is essentially the closest thing. He's sort of an audience character in the film. He's sort of the I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it, like he's probably the most morally upright character of the bunch, which isn't really a high bar, but still.
He was a man doing his job.
Essentially, yeah. And you know, the idea that he was the pleasant man and the others were the unpleasant men, I could agree with that. I think that's again, especially Marty. Marty is a complete dick. He is absolutely. You could tell he was shit to work for, and you could tell he'd be shit to be married to.
It's very possible he might have actually abused our main heroine.
It's possible. It's possible. I got the impression that he just kind of neglected and ignored her, but he definitely shows a willingness to abuse her. I mean, that scuffle where she ends up breaking his finger. He was very violent at that moment.
Best line in the movie. "Hey, old man, how did you break your pussy finger?"
What's that?
I said best line in the movie as he was walking along the road. Marty is there was a kid who called out, "Hey, how did you break your pussy finger?"
Good times. Yeah.
For some reason that's
Yeah, all them kids are sitting there by the cars and everything, and he walks by, and one of them says that.
Yeah. Now, I will say, talking about lines in the film, hold on a second.
No, stay there.
Talking about lines in the film, Brandon was saying before that this one, the dialogue is less Coen-y than most of their films. But oh, wait a minute. No, Abby says that he gave her the gun for their anniversary. That's what it was. But the detective does have some pretty good Coenisms. And there's like the one scene where he's talking to Marty, and Marty's like, in Greece they would cut off the head of the messenger that brought the bad news. Now that don't make much sense. No, it made them feel better. Well, first off, Julian, I don't know what the story is in Greece, but in this state we got very definite laws about that. Second place, I ain't a messenger. I'm a private investigator. And third place, it is so on. But like I just felt like that. I kind of had a little bit of a Coenism there. And then at another point, he's like, "Give me a call whenever you want to cut off my head. I can always crawl around without it." According to the Coens, one of the reasons that he's driving a VW Bug is that they saw him as a very bug-like character. Like he's sort of a cockroach. And that's one of the reasons they had him driving a bug. So I'm like, yeah, that's kind of fun. Let me see that. But anyway, I guess if you guys feel like we've done a decent job on the plot, we could go into production.
Yep.
All right. So what are y'all's thoughts on the production here?
Well, I thought the production was pretty good. Yes, I agree. The pacing was slow, but any first effort, is often tends to be slow for at least. And I do think that the general throng of artisans that have to do with Oscar worthy films, the polite society of film lovers, so to speak, love the slow ones.
I like French films, pretentious, boring French films.
Pretentious, boring, and often watched with old-fashioned wigs. So
I thought the production was decent. I mean, it was that type of movie you didn't need like these special effects and all kinds of weird stuff or whatever. It was fine just the way it was with the real stuff,
Mm-hmm.
So
Just enough to be convincing, and really and truly, do you need more than that? I mean, the gunshot wounds looked convincing enough. The actual settings, having multiple settings, you didn't have to have tons, but you had enough that it changed it up and it didn't feel like it was the same. It was, to me, I thought production value, yes, it's not like multi-million-dollar movie production value, but it is, but it does what it needs to do for the movie. Everything was done appropriately. And sometimes you don't need to go further than that.
Right.
No, sometimes you don't.
And again, with the this was filmed on a low budget. If I remember correctly, I think they said they went into production with about 750 grand or 700. Yeah, I think it was about 750 grand, which even in the early 80s, that's a pretty low budget film. And they did a really, really good job with what they had. Okay, no, actually, no, it was 1.5 million. So I think it was 750 when they went into production, and then I think they got matching funds or something like that. But yeah, it was, and they learned a lot of good tricks about how to make things on the cheap. And again, a lot of these people were learning as they went. The discussion with the Coens and Barry Sonnenfeld, all three of them were very, I would have done that differently, and I would have done that differently, and I would have done, there were a lot of things they've second guessed over the years, but overall, I think they did a really good job with what they had. And a couple of the shots that look right out of, like, there's the shot where Marty and Abby are fighting and they come out of the house and the camera like zooms in on them really fast. And I'm like, that feels like something right out of Evil Dead. I've always thought that. And then I found out they got that trick from Sam Raimi. And they said it was something like they had a camera on a 2x4 and just two people running it forward at top speed. And it was their shoestring version of a Steadicam, I guess. But I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. I wasn't totally crazy to think that looked overly similar. And also, this started a lot of collaborations. Barry Sonnenfeld was the cinematographer for, I think, 5 of their films, maybe 6. Eventually, they went with Roger Deakins and Bruno Delbonnel later on. But Sonnenfeld, before he became a director of his own, he did a lot of work as a cinematographer, and again, a lot of it for the Coens. With Miller's Crossing was the last one. So he did Miller's Crossing, Raising Arizona, and Blood Simple. And then I guess Misery apparently was his last one as a cinematographer before he became a director. And Skip Leavesay, who still does their sound work, and Carter Burwell, who still does their scores. Both of them got their start on this one. And they apparently were friends who've always worked closely together. One thing that I was amused by was apparently John Getz and Dan Hedaya were friends. And when the Coens told Getz that Hedaya was playing Marty, his reaction was apparently, yeah, okay, I get that. I'm like, oh, wow. What are friends for, right? But speaking of Carter Burwell, we'll start with him for the music. We already touched a little bit on Same Old Song. We'll come back to the found music. But what do y'all think of Burwell's theme for this one?
I guess it went okay with it. I wasn't really paying attention to it. But
yeah, for the most part, for me, I've forgotten the sound of it. That's the thing, is when I think of a memorable score, it has to be one that I'm still hearing in my head when I think of the movie. And I admit, I hear nothing in my head when I think about the movie, except for maybe the song they play on the jukebox, because they play it several times. But even then, my mind's already lost it. So while I think effectively done, I don't consider it anything like earth-shattering.
I happen to agree with you, Brandon. It should have to be rememberable for years from now. And I came out of the movie not really like thinking about it.
Because there are plenty of movies
that one song.
I have to admit that my favorite Burwell Coen collaborations have definitely been Raising Arizona, Fargo, and Miller's Crossing, and I think all 3 of those were phenomenal. I actually have the Miller's Crossing soundtrack. I have a soundtrack. If I remember correctly, I think they put Blood Simple and Raising Arizona on one soundtrack, and I think they put, Raising Arizona and Blood Simple, and I think they put Barton Fink and Fargo on one soundtrack. So I've listened to these soundtracks on their own, and I'll admit, Blood Simple, there's not a lot of original music. It's basically one simple piano theme redone a handful of times, but it's a very pretty melody that has sort of a creepy pseudo horror vibe to it. But this is a film, and again, this is one of the things where I think where it is a little bit more of a horror than a noir vibe. This is a film where the silences are more important than the sound, or more prevalent than the sound. I mean, the sound is important. I misspoke on that, but like silence is as much a part of the soundtrack as anything. I guess is what I'm trying to say. And yeah, there are a handful of songs that are played throughout the film. There's that same old song by the Four Tops played several times. And that's mostly it. So music is not a huge part of the movie, but I think it's an important part of the movie. Personally, I like it. But I will admit, the theme doesn't pop at me the way some of the others do. Like Raising Arizona, even though Raising Arizona is basically a countrified remix of Ode to Joy, it's fun. But
see, when I look at a soundtrack, there's a couple of things that I think of when I'm looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the lowest end, it's a soundtrack that's so disjointed that it takes you out of the film. And there are some films that do have that kind of soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
Then there is the soundtrack that just does the basic job, is not particularly great, and there's a level for that. You know, you've got the low level, which is, I don't remember a single thing, to the, yeah, you play a few bars, I might remember the tune.
Right.
And then you have this is so epic that anytime you mention the film, I hear that soundtrack. And then to me, finally, the ultimate one is not only do I hear the soundtrack, I want the soundtrack so I can listen to it on its own.
Like the Indiana Jones theme, that I can hear every single time. Or
yeah,
Empire Strikes Back.
Oh yeah.
And I would put this one at probably at the high end of the second tier, of the lower second tier. It's a decent theme. It's strong enough, but it's not, to me, in the upper two greatnesses, like Indiana Jones, or even a lot of other Coen films.
Well, the Indiana Jones theme is like a world apart from most of the others.
Like I would put, just to use Coen films, like I'd put Inside Llewyn Davis way over this one.
You see, that's one that I have only seen a couple of times, and I remember the songs more than any score for that one.
No Country for Old Men.
Right.
That's one has a score that's at the lower end, in my opinion, of the memorable scores, because I can still hum a few bars from that one.
Right.
Like I said, this one.
Which one was that King Kong one that I like the soundtrack? But there isn't the soundtrack for all the great tunes that are in that movie.
You're talking about the one King Kong Skull Island?
I think so. There's a lot of great music in that movie, but it's not on a soundtrack.
So I will say this, like, I have long maintained that Carter Burwell is one of the most underrated composers, and he's only had 3 Oscar nominations, and 2 of them were for Martin McDonagh films. He was nominated for The Banshees of Inisherin and for 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. His first ever nomination was for Carol. And that same year, Mr. Holmes came out, and I thought he did a much better job with Mr. Holmes. He has never yet been nominated for a Coen Brothers film. But he did the music on almost all of them. And I still say it's a crime that Miller's Crossing was overlooked. I do think that is one of the best scores ever written, and Fargo's a close second. But there are not like a close second of their stuff. But yeah, I remember No Country was good, but that's one I have a harder time remembering, to be honest. But some of them, like Barton Fink, was very spare. Like, it was very spare. There was very little music in that one, but it was good. And then, of course, they've done movies like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou and The Big Lebowski, where Burwell composed music, but it was mostly found music, with T-Bone Burnett doing the honors there. But anyway, does anyone else have any comments on production, music, what have you, or should we go on into favorites?
I think we should go on into favorites and whatnot. Did you have something special in mind for us to go along with that, or no?
Well, let's do. We'll do favorite scene and or dialogue or whatever. Favorite character, kind of the usual. And let's say if you can think of a debut feature film that we haven't done that you think would be a really cool one to try to hit one of these days. So I guess we'll start with you, Dave.
Alrighty. I do. Okay, my favorite character. I think my favorite character is actually going to be Ray. Because even though, yeah, he's kind of a dummy, he's a likable dummy. He just so happens to be in love with a woman who he thinks is or has committed a murder.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, he goes to the extreme. He didn't technically need to, but it happens.
Right.
As far as my favorite scenes, I definitely love the part where she stabs his hand, and he's basically shooting holes through the wall and pummeling the wall just to get his hand done, and then that final kill shot. That was, but I didn't expect. When I first saw this movie, I didn't expect the detective to actually kill Marty originally. That was unexpected to me. It was not.
All right.
I thought he had actually killed them, and it was going to be a whodunit murder kind of a thing instead of the way it was originally. So, as far as a debut movie, I wouldn't mind go with Egger's first movie, The Witch.
Okay. I need to see that. I have not. All right. How about you, Tammy?
I was also gonna go for Ray, but kind of because, in a way, yeah, he is a bumbling idiot, but because he's trying so hard to do the right thing, but yet protect her because he thinks that she did this murder, and he has thoughts of running, when Marty comes back to life, he has thoughts of running him over, but then dismisses it. He has thoughts of, I think throwing him in front of that 18-wheeler, but dismiss, you know what I mean? He has all these other thoughts, but no, he doesn't do it. Nope, he doesn't do it, And he just, it's like kind of, you have to feel for him because he's trying so hard to make everything. It's like he's trying to make everything right, and everything keeps going wrong.
Right.
Favorite scene? I actually like it when she broke his finger and then she kicked him so damn hard in his balls and he threw up. You know?
Oh yeah, I meant to mention that when he throws up, that's actually Barry Sonnenfeld with an uncredited vocal cameo. According to the panel discussion, Sonnenfeld is a sympathetic vomiter, and when Hideo threw up, he threw up too. And apparently Hideo didn't sound convincing enough, so they recorded Sonnenfeld and used it instead. I thought that was pretty funny. I was like,
a professional regurgitator.
Yeah, I guess.
And I like the whole ending thing too. She traps the dude with his arm, and then he's, shooting the wall and all that stuff. But as far as the movie thing that you're talking about, I have no idea what to say because I don't know things the way you guys do. So, I mean, David, if there's another one that you could think of, go ahead and mention it because I don't know what to say.
I'm trying to think. Maybe Following by Christopher Nolan.
Oh, that was one that kind of bored me, to be honest, which is weird because I like Nolan. But it would
wasn't that Christopher Nolan's first?
It was, yes. And that would be interesting to revisit it. Yeah. Alrighty. How about you, Brandon?
Well, I guess my favorite character, other than the fish,
the dog,
would be, I guess, actually the private detective. Because I just thought that he was particularly fun.
Stingy.
Sure.
As a character. Overall, he was just a fun guy on that.
Mm-hmm.
As far as favorite scene, I think pretty much anything at that end scene where they were doing that last desperate struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. As far as debuts, well, I'll go back to my one of my favorites with Evan Jacobs. His first film, Walking Between Raindrops, is actually a really good film that pays homage to both Woody Allen and Kevin Smith in its execution, and though you can definitely see a lot of rough around the edges when it comes to the quality of the film, it is quite good. For people who like a lot, I mean, his earlier works are definitely very different from his, current works. Not to say that his current works are bad, that they are very different. I could tell that he decided to go a very different direction around the time of Angela's Home movie, which was his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was his sixth film, the film that he did after Schusterman Levine. I would say that it was Angela's Home movie that was the turning point that leads him to his to what he is today, because all the films before that, for the most part, are far more artistic and really try to be much more than what are there. So it's kind of cool to see his. And if you wanted somebody who is more famous, I would say the movie that Adam Sandler did is his acting debut, Going Overboard, just because it's such a terrible movie. It would be fun to go back to that because, it's sort of you think some of my movies that I do now are bad. Well, hold my beer.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking more directors, but yeah, that's one way to do it.
I keep thinking about Jim Carrey's first movie, Rubberball.
Or we could look at Johnny Depp's directorial debut and only directed film, The Brave, which was one of God, what was his name? Which was God, what is that actor's name? The one who played the guy. Yeah, which is like I think Marlon Brando's last role, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. But he only had a couple more after that.
Yeah, it was towards the very end of his life. So
his last full-on role was The Score, which was an interesting movie, and I'd like to do that one day. But yeah.
But if you require a director that actually has some goings on, then that would probably be the next, because it would be kind of cool to cover the only film that Johnny Depp wrote and the only one he directed. That apparently performed so badly he would not allow it to come out here any further.
Right.
But Evan Jacobs would be more of my preference, because I think it's Walking Between Raindrops is actually a better movie overall.
Alrighty. So, for me, I'm tempted to say that final confrontation with Abby and the detective would be my favorite, but I also do like the Michelangelo moment where Ray is burying Marty, and there's that moment, and when Marty's crawling away from the car. But really, I would almost say the scenes between Marty and the detective are probably my favorites, because there was some good interplay between the two of them, good dialogue, and both of them acting very well in the roles. So I'll probably say that. But the and favorite character is definitely the detective. I think he's fun. He's fun. Honestly, Ray is the most likable, but it took me a while to warm to him, because he's probably the least interesting of the main cast, but he is the most likable, I guess you could say. But the detective is a lot of fun, so I'll go with him. And as I could think, there probably are a few people that I'd like to cover their first movies, but one that comes immediately to mind, that it wasn't his first film. He had a few short films, but it was his first feature film. One of these days, we definitely have to hit Jason Reitman's Thank You for Smoking. That was such a good movie, and I think that could be a lot of fun to talk about as well. And yeah, I guess we'll go with that. So, any final thoughts?
Not that I know of.
Okay, that was a pretty short and sweet conversation. That's probably a good thing. Anyway, I guess I'll hand it over to you, Dave.
Alrighty. Well, I'm David Strege. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore, so thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous journey we've been having. Hopefully you've enjoyed this month, and we'll definitely be having more in store for you next month. But why don't we go around and tell the audience a little bit about ourselves. So, Tammy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I go on this channel, another one with David, and talk about movies and everything with everybody, and get their opinions, and check out a lot of times movies I've never seen, and it's a lot of fun. And that's about it for right now until we get the nice sunny weather again and I can bring my car out.
Alrighty. Jake, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm Kotobukijake. I am the sometime co-host of SeptumSin versus the World YouTube channel, where
You want to?
we talk about physical media and so forth. And I'm joined by Spirit. Say hi, Spirit. I unfortunately am in less than peak health right now due to a extended trip over the weekend down south, where I got to have quite a lot of fun exploring. Found two new favorite places, 40 Acre Rock in South Carolina and Green Swamp Preserve in North Carolina. But also, unfortunately, got locked out of my truck on a logging road in the Carolina Sandhills. And I think I might have pneumonia because of that. So lovely. But when I'm not doing that, I usually keep pretty busy with work. I'm trying to do some writing. I've been wanting to be a writer for many years and just been very lazy at it. But right now, I'm actively working toward getting a novel together. So that I hope will happen sooner than later. We will see. And I, of course, make time to watch movies to join these fine folks each week. And also, we have planned, and I hope I'll be up for it this week. We'll find out. Our anime discussion on our channel this week, where we'll be covering Pony Pony Dash, which is a very different program from Blood Simple, to put it mildly. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that for now.
Okay. Heading over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I run SeptumSin versus the World. We like physical media. There is a review for Phil Herman's The Unearthed. There's actually two of them on there, but I go much more thorough, and there's a lot more clips utilized for the second review. And I've actually got several reviews filmed. It's just getting the time to sit and edit, which sucks. I've actually got a pickup video I need to edit, and I got a review for Pickleball Exorcist that I need to edit. And I actually have the script for Camp Blood 666 Part 2, which I need to film, then edit. So a lot of that going on. But who knows? Maybe one day I will have stuff to post on the channel. But we will do the anime discussion Wednesday, Jacob's health willing.
Okay. Is that pretty much it?
I guess after you're done, I'll come back and talk about next month.
Sure. Well, as you know, my name is David Strege. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us again. But I moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where I go on almost every Sunday, and we talk about movies of all kinds as well. With a different group, Forrest, myself, and Tamara at this time. And we have fun. I believe we covered Oh God this last Sunday. And coming up, we're going to be covering the American version of Ring 2 to be discussed this next Sunday. So look out for that. But I do believe that our discussion on Oh God is already up there, so check that out. I do some video pickups and some video reviews from time to time, so you can check out some stuff that I do from time to time. I have made a lot of music lately, and they're up on my playlists. I believe I just completely finished another album. I believe Fork in the Road Part 2. So if you haven't checked out some of that music, go right ahead. And I do believe that 12 albums are now out for sale on the Kunaki web store that we have going for films and music for both myself and Brandon's band. So please go ahead, check those out. If you're still into physical media like we are, definitely buy yourself a copy. I know they're fairly cheap on there. Yeah. I know I like having physical CDs and physical DVDs because you never know what America might erase from existence from your streaming sites. They like to pick and choose these days. So, in any case, back to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us what's in store this next month?
Well, next month I'm lucky enough to have 5 slots, and I have decided, for those of you who have followed us for a while, I was on a channel called Schlockaholics, and I wanted for the longest time to revisit a group of films that are definitely low-budget schlock that we were going to cover, but then that fell to pieces. So instead, I'm going to dedicate next month to revisiting the John Johnson quadrilogy of Skeleton Key, which, Skeleton Key 2, Skeleton Key 3, and Skeleton Key 3 Part 2. Of course, next week, though, because when I did the original reviews on my channel, which, by the way, if you want, you can look up my channel and look in for Skeleton Key. There are reviews, and if you look in the comments, the director actually commented on each and every one of them. I was not too kind to those movies, except for the last one. So I'm sorry already in advance for subjecting you to movies I actually don't like or didn't like the last time I watched them.
There are movies that you don't like that I like. So.
Except for the last one, I liked the fourth movie for some reason.
Okay.
So I'm curious to see if, now that it's been some time and I've watched a lot of schlock since, if I can gain more appreciation for them. So in a way, next month is a second chances month. But everybody who, if you look in the comments, was tearing me a new one because they thought that the movie was great, but they weren't thinking about the John Johnson Skeleton Key. They were thinking that I was reviewing, which I guess, which also, by the way, tells me they really weren't paying a lot of attention to it. They were thinking about the Kate Hudson film, Skeleton Key, in 2005, directed by Lane Softly.
I guess they were thinking you weren't paying attention.
So that is going to be next week's film to lead us off into Skeleton Key month. So we get to see a legit horror film followed by a lot of micro-budget features.
Oh, boy.
Viva March.
Hey, low budget is my bread and butter, so I give you stones. I give you the stones for doing it.
All right.
If not for low budget media, we would not have mainstream.
All right.
Hey, if anything, John Johnson has made some pretty fun films in his time, including the remake of Plan 9 from Outer Space, which is a really cool horror film. And I really also, like I say, I also like Skeleton Key 3 Part 2. I have a feeling that I probably will like these much better this time around because I'm much more practiced with them now.
Alrighty. Well, on that note, if you don't have anything else to let us know, you can bring us out, Brandon, with our fantastic outro.
Exactly.
Alrighty.
Inside movies galore just makes you just want more. We've had all in the world of media to explore. Horror, anime, or Curious George. Our love of new things was our reward. It is the best night of our week.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.